Let me give you the definition of devotion. The word devoted refers to being deeply committed or loyal to someone or something. Deeply committed or loyal to someone or something. Of course, it means being devoted to God, being deeply committed or loyal to God, being deeply committed or loyal to his word, being deeply committed or loyal to prayer, being deeply committed or loyal to worship, being deeply committed or loyal to the church. It means that what it means to be devoted. It suggests a strong sense of dedication, affection, or attachment, often involving a willingness to prioritize or give considerable time and energy to a cause, person, belief, or task. A devoted person demonstrates unwavering support or loyalty, showing faithfulness. There's the word we want, faithfulness, and wholehearted engagement in what they are committed to. And one of the first things I want to point out is that God is devoted to his people. God is loyal, steadfast to his people. He's faithful to his people. And we ought to have the same dedication to God, to be faithful to him. Israel was not faithful to the covenant God gave them. God was faithful to the covenant. He was loyal. He was devoted to the covenant, but they weren't. And sometimes faithfulness is something that you don't see in people, even in friends that are devoted to each other. That means they're faithful, loyal, steadfast to one another. We have so many people that have lost faithfulness and devotion, even people who claim to be Christians or claim to be believers. Well, one of the verses that Paul actually quotes in the book of Romans when he says the just shall live by faith. It's a foundational scripture concerning justification and righteousness, that the just are justified by faith. It's from Habakkuk 2:4. It says this: behold, the proud, his soul is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Or the just, some translations say, the just shall live by his faithfulness. So sometimes we hear about faith, and we talk about faith, believing God for something, but faith is also faithfulness. It's believing and trusting God in season, out of season. It means trusting God when things are going well, when things are not going the way you think they should be going. For instance, Job remained faithful to God in spite of his captivity, in spite of what he went through. He never cursed or denied God. He asked for things. He asked for an audience with God. He needed an intercessor. He needed an interpreter. He felt that God he was being punished, or his friends said he was being punished for sin. He was telling them, I've not done anything. And they were all wrong, by the way. And God ends up rebuking Job and his three friends, but really his three friends even worse, because they spoke, and Job had to make an offering and sacrifice and pray for them. But he was faithful, because being devoted or being faithful is a mark of righteousness. It's a mark of being just. It's an indelible mark. It's an indelible mark among God's people. Now, LeJean Cole just wrote a book called Indelible, and it's talking about having an indelible mark. What is an indelible mark? Is something that cannot be erased. When you mark something, you claim it as yours. God marks his people, and one of the marks is faithfulness. Ezekiel saw a vision during his day of an angel with an inkhorn going around marking all the faithful believers before judgment would come. God would put a mark on them to differentiate them from the wicked that judgment was coming to. Judgment was coming to Israel, was coming to Jerusalem, was coming to the city. And before God sent judgment, he had an angel go with an inkhorn to mark all of those who were faithful, who had not been partakers of idolatry. They were faithful and loyal, devoted to God. So God does mark people. God marks the righteous. And one of the signs, or one of the marks, or one of the indicators of a just person is faithfulness. Faithfulness. Are you a faithful person? Are you a faithful believer? Are you faithful to God in spite of what you go through? I've seen people walk away from God, walk away from the church, walk away from prayer, walk away from their faith in God because of trials, trouble, tests. The trying of your faith works patience, but some people don't like the testing of faith, the trying of faith. Your faith will be tried. Your faith will be tested. But when it's true faith, the result is that you're faithful. So let's talk about that. Again, this verse, Habakkuk 2:4, the just shall live by his faith, presents a striking contrast between the proud and the righteous. It's interesting. He talks about it, the proud there. One of the signs of unrighteousness is pride. One of the signs of righteousness is humility. Another mark of a righteous person is humility. The mark of an unrighteous person is pride. And there's a contrast between the proud and the righteous. Now, often we talk about the contrast between the unrighteous and the righteous. But this verse actually makes a contrast between the proud and the righteous. There is a difference between the proud and the righteous. So one of the signs of the righteous is an absence of pride. This verse is pivotal in understanding the role of faith and faithfulness in the life of a believer. The first part of the verse highlights the proud person whose soul is not upright. So he's unrighteous. He's not upright. He's proud. This speaks to those who rely on their own strength, wisdom, or resources, rejecting reliance on God. Pride, in this context, leads to a distorted inner life that is not aligned with God's ways. The proud trust in themselves, and this self-reliance becomes their downfall as their actions lack integrity and humility. See, being righteous means that the just shall live by faith. The righteous shall live by faith means that your righteousness is not based on what you do. It's based on what Christ did for you. It's a total reliance on Christ and his sacrifice, his blood. You don't rely on your works. You don't rely on your efforts to get to heaven. That is pride. You realize that your works can never be good enough to merit heaven, but Christ's works merit you heaven. So your faith is not in yourself. You don't rely on your own righteousness. That's legalism and pride, and religious righteousness is self-righteousness, which is also rooted in pride. But you rely on Christ. The just shall live by faith. You have faith in him. And so, again, the proud trust in themselves, and this self-reliance becomes their downfall as their actions lack integrity and humility. In contrast, and again, if you're on Facebook, please share the broadcast. Please share the broadcast. Someone needs to hear this. In contrast, the second part of the verse introduces a profound principle. The just shall live by his faith. Here, faith is not merely a belief in God. Remember, the Bible says if you believe in God, you do well. The devil believes and trembles. Devils believe in God. But here, faith is not merely a belief in God. There are a lot of people that say they believe in God. Most people probably say, I believe in God. I even believe in Jesus. I believe in the Bible. It's not merely that, but a deep-rooted trust and faithfulness to him. A deep-rooted trust and faithfulness to him. Let me say this again. Here, faith, Habakkuk 2:4, the just shall live by his faith. Here, faith is not merely a belief in God, but a deep-rooted trust and faithfulness to him. There are a lot of people that say they believe God, but they don't have a deep-rooted faith and trust in God. But they believe in God. They believe there is a God. They believe in the Bible. Some of them even believe in going to church. But no, it's a deep-rooted trust and faithfulness to him. The term faith The Hebrew word emunah, E-M-U-N-A-H, E-M-U-N-A-H, can also be translated as faithfulness. I love this aspect of this verse. Faithfulness or steadfastness or devotion, implying a lifestyle marked by consistency and loyalty to God. The just are consistently loyal, faithful, and devoted to God. Again, that's different from the religious. You can be religious and not be consistently loyal and faithful to God, but you believe in God. So there are a lot of people that fall into that category. They're not just. They're not righteous. They're unrighteous people who are not saved, but they'll tell you, oh, I believe in God, and will argue with you how they believe in God. But they're not consistently loyal and faithful to God. They'll live in the world. They'll come to church. They'll backslide. They'll live in the world. They'll live in sin. They're not faithful. Faithfulness, steadfastness, implying a lifestyle marked by consistency and loyalty to God. The righteous person lives a continual dependence on God. A continual dependence on God, demonstrating faithfulness in their actions, decisions, and way of life. This faithfulness is not passive, but an active, enduring commitment to God's will and purposes, even in the face of challenges or delays. It really shows up, this loyalty, this faithfulness, this consistency, this devotion really shows up in the life of a true believer when they have challenges, when they have delays. They don't give up. They don't turn around. They don't go back. They don't leave. They don't depart. They continue to walk with God in spite of challenges, tests, trials, and delays. Do you have that mark? Is that a mark of your life? Are you a just, righteous person? Not by your own strength, but by God's righteousness, by his blood? Or are you a person that say, I believe in God, but you're really not faithful, loyal, steadfast? You're really not living by faith or faithfulness. Thus, Habakkuk 2:4 emphasizes that true life, real spiritual vitality, comes through faithfulness to God. While the proud trust in their own abilities and find their soul corrupted, the righteous live in humility, relying on God's faithfulness and showing steadfast trust in his promises. This life of faithfulness is not just for moments of crisis, but is the daily walk of those who are declared righteous before God. Let me read that again. This life of faithfulness is not just for moments of crisis, but is the daily walk of those who are declared righteous before God. In essence, faithfulness is both the evidence and the outworking of genuine faith in God. Faithfulness is both the evidence and outworking of genuine faith in God. There is true faith. There is genuine faith. And then there are those who say, I believe in God. But that's not the faith that justifies or saves. The devils believe and tremble. So which are you? Do you have that indelible mark as a believer? Do you live by faith? Do you live by your faithfulness to God? That no matter what happens, what comes, who goes, you're faithful to God, you're steadfast, you're unmovable, you're devoted. Are you that kind of person when challenges and trials and tests come, when everybody else walks away? Are you the one that stays, remains faithful to God? Are you one that departs and comes back and departs and comes back and up and down? You know, are you double-minded? That's not good. Double-mindedness is doubt. It's not faith. A double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. The Bible says, cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Both of those verses are in the book of James. So we can't be double-minded. Single-minded, devoted, single-minded, devoted, single-minded, devoted. Let me do this. Let me do this. Let me expand on this. Let me expand on Habakkuk, because I really feel I didn't plan on going this long, but let me expand on this and talk about in reference to being single-minded. I'm going to write it up right now. Then I'm gonna read it to you. I don't usually do this, but that word in James 1:8, it came to me. A double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. And we need to be single-minded, devoted, focused, single-minded, not wishy-washy, up, down, double-minded, but single-minded, focused, devotion. That was last night's message. I got so stirred up that if you watch the replay, I began to prophesy after Dr. Pullings ministered. And I'm looking forward to tonight with Apostle ministering tonight. God has really promoted her and exalted her in what she's doing. I'm trying to think of her name, and Jenny Weaver. Thank you. I'm doing two things at one time. I should know better than that. Let me expand on this for you. Expand on Habakkuk 2:4, particularly the phrase "the just shall live by his faith" can also be understood in terms of being single-minded in one's devotion to God. Single-mindedness implies having an undivided focus, a resolute commitment to one primary goal or pursuit. In the context of faith, this involves an unwavering trust in God, free from distractions and divided loyalties. The verse contrasts the proud with the just, revealing that the proud person is self-reliant and unfocused on God. Their soul is not upright, meaning it is unsettled, divided, or misaligned with God's will. Pride often leads to a lack of clarity in one's spiritual life as it pulls a person in multiple directions, relying on human strength, wisdom, and desires rather than submitting fully to God. This results in instability and an inability to live a righteous life. On the other hand, the just person who lives by faith is single-minded in their devotion and dependence on God. Faith in this context is not simply believing in God's existence, but living with unwavering loyalty and trust in Him. To be single-minded in faith is to center one's life entirely on God's promises, prioritizing His will above all else, and not being swayed by circumstances, temptations, or worldly concerns. This reflects a deep commitment to God's ways, characterized by perseverance and faithfulness in all areas of life. Jesus' teaching in Matthew 6:22-24 also aligns with this idea of single-mindedness. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your body will be full of life. The King James says, if your eye is single. This illustrates the need for undivided focus on God, which results in clarity and righteousness. A single-minded person lives with integrity, guided by faith, and avoids the instability that comes from trying to serve both God and worldly desires. In sum, Habakkuk 2:4 calls the just to live by faith with a single-minded heart. Such faith does not waver, split focus, or become distracted by competing desires. Instead, it is steadfast and centered on God alone, which leads to a life that is upright, stable, and secure in His promise. And so that is something that we need to understand should be the mark of a believer. Steadfastness, loyalty, single-mindedness, unwavering, resolute, devoted, faithful. This should be your mark as a believer. If you don't have that, then either You need to recommit or rededicate to God, or you need some deliverance from double-mindedness, which is another whole teaching. I have a book. I don't have it with me. I should have all my books with me. One is called Unshakable. It's a book on schizophrenia and double-mindedness, which is also available at Amazon.com. If you never read it, it goes into the problem with rejection, rebellion, and the root of bitterness, the three strongholds of the double-minded personality and the demon groupings that work with it. It's called Unshakable. It's really an amazing book on deliverance. If you've not gotten that book, order it. The book Unshakable. As a matter of fact, I'll have Octavia, if you can put that link up in Clubhouse so that people can see it. Find the link for Unshakable, and if you can, please put it in the link above the room in Clubhouse. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you so much. Don't forget tonight, 7 p.m., Jenny Weaver will be ministering the second night of 5 nights, free of charge, WomenArise2024.com. Over 50,000 women have signed up for this from around the world, and you can be one of them. But it's open to men too. I'm listening because the principles they're sharing are amazing, and you'll be blessed by it. Okay, thank you so much. Until tomorrow, we'll recap tonight's tomorrow. As always, until you hear from me again, God bless you and double shalom. God bless.